back to Wrist Check Podcast, episode 14.
Yeah.
Gang's back together again. We have a special guest in the house, Brynn Wallner, a.k.a. Dimepiece.
Hi.
How are you doing this evening?
I'm great. I feel lucky to be here because it's your birthday.
It is his birthday.
There you go.
Thank you.
Happy birthday
Thank
to you,
you.
birthday boy.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
How are you
guys.
feeling today?
I feel great.
Wiser, older?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of those things, still learning and building. Can't say I'm a better man, but I'm working towards
You've
it.
probably been doing a lot of partying today, haven't you? You sound like it.
Yes.
Well, it's all right. We mix a little work in. We'll make it fun. Since it is your birthday, why don't you kick us off with the wrist check today?
Oh man. So I'm gonna call an audible.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Coach Smith is back
Already?
on the play.
I always seem to do something disorderly.
Okay.
So today I'm gonna do a double wrist check.
Wow.
Oh, damn.
Two
Bold moves
watches.
only.
Don't hurt him.
So I wanted to go kind of like orderly with the traditional G-Shock 2100, but then go ahead and turn over to the Casio.
So we have two G-Shocks.
Yes, two G-Shocks, two 2100s, but one has its custom modification, and the other one is at its purest form.
Okay. And so that's the AP mod that
Yes.
you have on there. So that's like a Royal Oak,
Let me see this.
Royal Casio. And is that the watch I got you?
This is the watch that you gifted me.
Nice.
Wow.
I had asked you before. I was like, man, how do you feel if I mod this thing?
Oh, totally fine.
What was it on originally?
So it was originally on like a black leather, like rubber with a black bezel. And it was cool. It was really cool. But I felt like because of the dial and the hands and how they like have this blue
The
and
dial's
process,
cool. It's blue and purple.
The contrast
Yeah.
is really cool.
I was like, yeah.
What's also impressive
what
is
you
like the finishing on that case.
the quality of this is actually
Yeah,
really
it
high.
doesn't feel cheap at all.
No, it
No,
doesn't.
it's not.
That's
I mean, and can be had at only $100.
Respect.
Nice.
Plug.
On my way.
The funniest thing too, going back to just like my birthday, and I had seen so many birthday throwbacks that people were sharing, and something that you've mentioned before, Perri, is like I've always in all the pictures, like whether I was like big, skinny, whatever, like I always was wearing a watch.
Yeah.
A classic G-Shock, a gold Casio.
For as long as I've known you, you've never left the house without a watch on your wrist.
I mean, and it kind of speaks to my truth. Like, I love watches. I love to collect watches, and I love to make it fun. So doing something like this is just awesome.
Some double fisting.
Oh, Lord.
I'm sure you'll be doing a lot of that tonight for your birthday.
Throwing it up.
Yeah, there we go.
Throwing it up.
Brynn, what do you have for us today?
Well, had I known it was your birthday, I would have worn my G-Shock. Because I know you like
Yes.
I have the John Mayer Hodinkee G-Shock, but it's hard for me to wear that. I really like small watches.
Yeah.
I'm just wearing my little 26 millimeter Rolex on the Jubilee bracelet with the champagne dial.
Cool.
It's from like 1985, I think.
Nice.
And yeah, I was able to pay for it because I did a little influencer video.
There we go.
Nice.
I got some store credit to Rebag, the luxury consignment.
I'm all about
website.
working for watches.
Yes.
I mean,
We'll
I was
work
so
for watches.
excited.
Pay me
It's
in
nice though.
watches.
You got
Right?
it's two-tone, so it's gold and steel.
Yeah, and I
Wow.
wear two-tone jewelry for the most part.
Yeah, and with it's like a champagne linen dial. Is it linen?
No, it's just a regular.
okay.
I don't know what you would call it.
Champagne dial, like a little sunburst dial. It's nice. I mean, it's classic Datejust.
I know, and I feel like even from the 80s, and it's pre-owned, obviously, it's in great
Oh,
condition.
it's that character. I mean,
Yeah.
there's almost nothing better than like vintage Rolexes.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah, my first Rolex.
Congratulations.
My first and only.
There you go. That's how it starts.
Yep.
I guess I'll go next.
No, you go last. You're going last.
I'll go last. All right, you're gonna make me go last. All right.
Since Brynn was on the show, I
floor
wanted
is yours.
to assemble the Avengers today, and I found my nephew's Avengers watch.
Oh, that thing is fire.
From a Happy Meal.
Oh,
So that's how I just put it on because it does this.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And
Does
then
it-
you open it up,
And it
you
has
got
the
the
time?
time with all the Avengers on
Let me
it.
see.
It's
Wait,
great.
that's from a Happy Meal?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, it's like 4 years
That's why
old.
they call it Happy Meal.
I was digging around my room and just found it.
God.
How do you open this thing?
On the side, you can just like pull it.
That
I
is
wanna
so
break it.
cool.
You just yank it up right there.
Wow.
It actually tells the time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
It's
my
doing like
God.
a countdown now, though. I think you
Made
have-
by Accutron Watch Corporation.
Wow.
Oh, it's made by Accutron. Wow.
Damn.
That's actually really cool.
Right?
Yeah. That is so dope.
I dig that.
And Iron Man and Black Panther are very prominent on the strap. Those are two of my favorites, so had to wear it.
Two good movies.
Wow.
Nice.
I guess it's my turn.
Yeah, now it's your turn.
Now it's my turn. So prior we talked about these two helping me acquire a piece that I was a little reluctant to wear on the show. And I think I disclosed why a little bit on Kelly's episode.
You did.
But because of these two gentlemen who I care about so much, and they obviously care about me. Remember, you might have remembered from a previous episode, I was on the hunt for a green dial OP. And on my wrist today is a green dial OP. So I am wearing a new Rolex. I love it. I'm not gonna lie. It's everything I thought it was gonna be and a little bit more. I've been a little reluctant to wear it just because of the connotation that new Rolexes have, at least in our community. And a little embarrassed because on another episode I said I wanted a 36 and would not settle, and I settled for
And you
41.
settled for 41.
But you convinced me that it actually looks really good on my
It wears
wrist.
well.
And it
wears
does.
well.
It does. I love this thing. It reminds me of like a tennis court. It's fire. I think they did it right. It's a callback to the Stella dials. And to me, this is the one I have. I actually put it next to the box to compare the green, and it is indeed the actual same color green as the box.
And as the hat?
Oh, yeah. You
I
took
wore the
words out
hat,
my
so
mouth.
yeah, I'm a little flashy
You
today.
foreshadowed a little
Yes.
A
bit.
little bit. I had to. I also got the hat as a gift. Yeah, that's what we're rocking with today. So
That's nice.
new Rolex on the wrist. I got a lot of explaining to do to a lot
New
of people.
Rolex, new you.
Yes. Yes.
I need to hear the tea on. I'll wait for Kelly's episode.
Okay. All right. So moving along, you are pretty popular on the internet,
Oh, thank you.
and you said you actually one of our questions was, did you consider yourself an influencer? And you said you didn't influencing work, so I
Yeah.
assume that's a yes.
Well, it's funny because I feel like before Dimepiece, a lot of my friends were like, "You're so funny. You have such a good personality. You should try to be an influencer." And they're like, "But you have to post like every day, and you
Yeah.
have to post photos of yourself." And I was never comfortable with doing that. I mean, I'll post the occasional thirst trap, but I mean, or like the selfie.
That's
but-
necessary.
Yes. I mean, I love, I'm not shy by any means, but I felt weird, like consistently posting myself and like my fits and all
Sure.
that. And it wasn't until Dimepiece and that idea came about that I was like, oh, I can post like 3 times a day because
Yeah.
this is so exciting. And it's really about putting other women on with a sprinkle of me, but inevitably with the growth that has led to influencing opportunities.
Nice.
Which I won't say no to.
Sure.
Because it's helping me support myself.
That's incredible. So where did the concept of Dimepiece come from? What does Dimepiece mean, and how did you arrive there?
Well, I was working at Sotheby's, the art auction house, in 2019.
Okay.
I'm not an art person by any means, but I was brought on to the editorial team to do like culturally related content, like new up and coming artists, or like here's what Gen Z thinks about the art world, kind of
Okay.
fun stuff like that, to bring a new audience onto the Sotheby's website. And the watches department saw what I was doing. They were like, hey, we want you to make some content for us. Because
Cool.
in the grand scheme of the auction world, where you're selling like Picassos and like, just like millions and millions of dollars worth of stuff,
Yeah.
watches are more accessible relative to like the art that they're selling.
Sure.
So it's more prime for like an online only auction and kind of like it's an easier price point for some people to digest, unless it's like a Paul Newman.
Sure.
But they were like, we want younger people on. Like, can you do some fun content for us? And I was like, sure, but I don't know anything about watches. And then my boss was like, just do it anyway, because you could commission the writing, just produce it, find the imagery, fact check, like get to know them. You might like watches. And so I did, and I realized that I love watches. And I was like, how had I not cared about them at all before?
Yeah.
Like, it was like I was totally watch pilled.
Yeah.
And I started noticing them everywhere, like on the subway,
Yeah.
like in TV and movies. I was like, oh my God, like I can't.
It's one of those things. It's sort of like Instagram, but in real life. It's like the minute you click like on something, then your feed is just like,
Yeah.
it's that all day. You just start seeing it.
Totally. Like you can't unsee it.
What happened that made it sort of just like all click? Like, was it a particular piece, or did something sort of transpire? Was it a moment? What happened?
So part of my job for these articles I had to find the imagery for them. I didn't write them, but I was like on Getty, like obsessively looking for imagery. And so take like the Patek Philippe Nautilus.
Yep.
I'm like editing that, learning all about its history. And I was just like, where are the women in this? Do any women wear this? And I'd be like, women wearing a Nautilus. And like Victoria Beckham would show up. She's like a really big collector. But there was no mention of women like in the narrative or the history. It was all dudes.
Yeah.
Which I expected. But I was like, how can I kind of manipulate the story a little bit and at least throw in an image of a lady?
That's cool.
And I found this amazing photo of Rihanna at the airport. And she's wearing like a palace groutfit.
Yeah.
And she's just looking like very off duty, and she's wearing a Nautilus.
Wow.
And I was like, ooh, I'm throwing that in. Because it's like, she might not be mentioned in the piece, but I want to show that she's wearing it. And it was kind of in that moment that I was like, oh, there might be something here.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
In terms of your love and appreciation for watches, where do you lie? Like, what kind of does it for you? Are you interested in the technology at all? Is it aesthetics? Do you find the history exciting? Like, which one of these avenues do you value most?
Yeah. Well, I feel like I hit it aesthetics first, where I'm just
That's
like,
sort of where I come from too.
Yeah.
I think for most people, like, you have to like the way it looks first. Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, why else would you spend so much money on something that's not wearable?
Be surprised.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, true. But coming at it from like a very kind of traditional consumer perspective, I'm like, does it look good when I wear it? Am I into it aesthetically? And I think that a lot of women come at it from that direction and are maybe like, oh, well, you like it for the aesthetics. You don't like it for the craftsmanship and the movement. But I feel like that comes after.
Definitely.
And so I'm like, oh, I like the Rolex, but then I learn about like the movement. It's like you need a gateway into it.
Yeah.
And aesthetics are for a lot of people, and there's no shame around that. And I also love the history. Like I love hearing about like how the Daytona nobody really cared about, or it wasn't even called the Daytona, and then all of a sudden you have like the biggest movie star on the planet,
Yeah.
Paul Newman, wearing it, and all of a sudden it like skyrockets in popularity, and to this day you see them going at auction for like 17 million.
I think the Daytona is a really good example
Yeah.
of what you're talking about too, because I remember I was talking to a gentleman. We got to talking about like old school Hoyer Octavias and how cool they were, because they were. Apparently you could get the watch via like an advertisement for Viceroy cigarettes.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Like, so like just the strangest thing, but this is of like that time.
Yeah.
And he was telling me, and this guy had been collecting watches for, years, is older gentleman. And he was telling me, he's like, one day he went to an AD, because we were looking at a Daytona. He goes to the AD, he buys like a new sub. And, well, he was considering it. And the guy told him, he's like, listen, if you buy the sub, I'll give you the Daytona half price.
Whoa, my God.
Yeah.
And he's
that
like,
was
I
definitely
don't
a thing.
want the Daytona.
Oh,
and he,
wait, when was this?
This was in, I think he said this was in, it might have been the 80s.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah.
So what he was saying was
I
at
need a
that
time
particular
machine.
time, right before then, no one wanted manual wound chronographs anymore. The chronographs that are coming out now were automatic. And so Daytona was still behind. And so that's why it was like, to them, it was kind of like seen as like kind of a garbage
Yeah,
chronograph.
nobody really cared.
You can find them at yard sales.
A lot
too.
of ADs gave them away if you bought enough gold watches.
Yeah,
you had a high enough spend,
yeah.
AD
Yeah, like,
literally would give
They
them
would
to
just
you.
give them to you.
Yeah.
Which is insane now, right? Because you were going to say something?
No. Well, it's so funny too because I was talking to a gentleman before, and he was talking about how even like purchasing a Rolls Royce, like they couldn't, like some like dealers couldn't sell a Rolls Royce to save their life. So what they would do is they'd be like, all right, buy this Rolls Royce and I'll literally give you a Range Rover for free.
It's crazy.
Like I will give you a Range Rover. Like, please take this off my hands. And it's so funny because now we talk about the Daytona being like almost arguably the most, influential
It's Rolex's
watch
crown
in the
jewel.
world. Like
Yeah.
it is their crown jewel. Like at the end of the day, like if you don't know about a Rolex, like if someone doesn't know about a president, they know about a Daytona for sure.
Sure.
Like
Absolutely.
it's crazy.
I mean,
It's a
yeah.
household name.
Now it is.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I think what's interesting to your point too, right, is I do feel like sometimes people can get flack for going in on aesthetics first. But when I think about, watches in the traditional sense, and I think about like people like my grandparents and their generation, they weren't talking about movements. They didn't care. It was aesthetics.
Yeah.
It was like, this is a handsome watch. This is a pretty watch. This goes with my suit. This goes with my outfit. Like, this is fun. This was a gift. Like, there were other things, the things that we talk about and what we value now that make it really special. Not necessarily what's under the hood. And that's cool, but I feel like that's kind of like a new advent.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so too, because especially like you were saying, like in our grandparents' time, like what was really popular were cars.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
you're definitely looking
That's
at what's
where
important with cars under the
you
hood.
were literally
because
looking under the
Yeah.
hood.
one could go faster than the other, or one could break sooner, or whatever it would be. One would perform better than the other, depending on what's under the hood. Where
Yes.
if you just put 5 watches next to each other, they're all doing the same thing at arguably the same time.
And that's funny too.
So it's harder to
because
tell.
Kelly brought that up in her.
She
in her
did,
interview.
actually.
She said most of my clients in the beginning of my career were all car guys. And what she said was, there's nothing more sexier than a woman that can talk mechanics. And it also validates as a woman to say, hey, we do have a place here too.
Yeah.
And what I love so much about, just the beginning of, us getting to know you, something that like stood out to me the most is that you actually said, well, where do I find myself in this place?
Yeah.
Like what do I need to do as an editor to actually not only, empower my voice, but empower the voice of women, across the board. So being able to say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna look up this, and you find Rihanna, like you said, like on her off duty, and like the only thing that stands out is her beautiful timepiece. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing, and it definitely speaks to your success and your creativity and what you've done for the watch community, and especially in the world of like the women watch collectors. So
Yeah.
I applaud you.
I think
Well,
this
thank you.
it is interesting too, like to kind of sneak it in there at like Sotheby's, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like when you do think about Sotheby's, if you are coming to
Sotheby.
yeah, right. So proper. When you're coming from the avenue of like watches, it would almost appear that like only one segment of the populace on the entire planet wears watches,
Yeah.
which we know is false.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. And so it's like, not only are you changing the narrative, you're actually just making it more accurate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm curious too, because obviously like Dimepiece is moving along and you're gaining momentum, and you got a deal or a situation, I should say, with Foundwell. How did that come about? You curating watches with Foundwell, because you're selling watches now too.
Yeah.
On Dimepiece.com.
Yeah. I met Foundwell. His real name is Alan.
Mm-hmm.
My friend who worked at Sotheby's actually connected me with him. He's like, you should really, meet up with this guy. You're getting into watches. He's a great person to know. And I met up with him. And on our first meeting, he had a little pouch of ladies' watches for me to try on and look at.
Yes.
And this was really early on in Dimepiece when I hadn't even had a watch myself.
Mm-hmm.
I hardly tried on watches, and I kind of didn't know where to go.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for like unique ladies pieces, which don't get a lot of shine.
Yep.
Like you don't see them really. And he pulled out like a little Cartier Benoit, and I was like, oh my God, I've never even heard of this.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was so exciting for me to see something that appealed to me so naturally. And I thought it was very generous of him for him to do a little show and tell. And we also just get along. Like our personalities are really compatible, and he's super cool. He worked at Ralph Lauren for 10
Everyone
years.
comes from Ralph.
Did
Yeah.
you? Did you work at Ralph?
We'll save
Oh,
that
okay.
for another day.
Just know that we're all very familiar.
Yes, we're very
Oh,
familiar with Ralph
okay.
Lauren, and it was so funny because like we all looked at each other. Because I haven't had the pleasure to meet Foundwell personally, but I have spoken to him. You know, and we've kind of like exchanged, you know, dialect, and we were talking about just like stuff.
Yeah.
So he's a lover of stuff.
Yeah, he loves stuff.
Yeah.
He just loves stuff. He
Yes.
collects stuff.
Yes.
And I remember I just like randomly DM'd him when I was, you know, working with, you know, that team and things like that, and had the opportunity to kind of like bridge that gap. I was like, yo, man, like, what's up? And he was like, oh, we actually share like this kind of like mutual thing, and it was awesome. So like we all kind of like looked at each other and we're like,
That's so funny.
Yes.
you know,
World's small.
The world is very small.
The man is a legend. That's really what it is.
Ralph
Really
or
truly a
Foundwell?
legend.
Ralph. Yeah.
Really truly a legend. And you know, even speaking to, you know, Mr. Lauren, he is someone that has created legends.
From the Bronx. Let's
Hey.
go.
From the Bronx, you know, it's crazy that we
Yeah.
have like, you know, that tie.
Totally.
Yeah.
This is very Ralph the Indigo.
Yeah. The you know, kind of like the, I don't know, I was feeling all like
Smokey the
turquoise and
Smokey the Bear.
yeah, like Smokey the Bear, like equestrian and like cowboy and like,
Yes.
you know, I'm about to like lasso a watch.
Yes.
Like I need
That's
to
You got
hilarious.
your you got your cowhide boots on, might as well.
I got my pony hair, my
Sure.
cowhides, like, you know,
Okay.
like,
The
Respect.
fit is going crazy today.
Yes.
Going crazy.
yes.
It's a birthday fit. That's what
Yes.
we're rocking with.
yeah.
Oh.
So, and you working with Foundwell and you meeting him and him delivering you that assortment, how has working in tandem sort of what he has going on worked for you? And I assume by now you've kind of figured out what your taste is, you know, what you like.
Yeah.
How are you curating the Dimepiece assortment? What is
Yeah.
that exactly?
Well, so after I met Foundwell, we wound up going, like, we would be on the same trips. Like, I went to Vegas for the Couture show in August, and they had a big antique watch sale, like a full trade show floor at the Wynn Hotel, where basically 47th Street relocates to Vegas
Yeah.
for a week. I don't know if you guys have been, but Alan was there, and he's like, come on the floor with me and just shadow me and kind of see what I'm doing. And already I was like, oh, I have a little mentor. How cute. I mean, I don't aspire to be a dealer, but I do aspire to learn more. Like, I want to know more about the business side of things because it's so crucial, you know, if you don't know about the secondary market when, like, that's what we're talking about. And so just hearing him kind of barter with the guys and asked to try things on. I tried on like a million watches. I tried on a gold Daytona.
Nice.
But it was really, really impactful for me. And he was like, why don't I pick up some ladies' watches? So like in the past year, we've been kind of picking up ladies' watches here and there that really get kind of overlooked at these shows. And it's like, I'm like, well, what are you going to do with these? Because it doesn't really fit with what he's selling on Foundwell.
Sure.
And he's like, nobody wants the ladies' watches because he sells to Mr. Porter and he sells to like Bergdorf's. He's like, nobody wants them. They just want the ones that are really hyped right now or like a classic
Got it.
vintage
Yeah.
one. And meanwhile, I have like hundreds of people in my DMs
Sure.
being like, what? Where can I buy a watch? I have no idea, but I want pre-owned. I want, you know, like a Cartier Santos. I want XYZ. And I'm like, you know, you could try the Real or try the Hodinkee Shop, you know, just referring people. And I'm like, but I also have these watches.
Yeah.
You know, and it felt just really organic. And it's not like a huge retail store. It's really curated. It's like, these are watches I would wear. These are watches that I find to be pretty much overlooked. And I'm trying to like give them a new...
I think that's cool though too, especially because like, so you're coming at it from the perspective of like people who are new to watches, right? And so you're curating an assortment where it's like, hey, like you already have an audience.
Yeah.
And it's like all of you are kind of asking me, where should I go? Here's sort of like my top picks and what I think is interesting, and here's why. And I think that's really cool because oftentimes getting into watches, we all kind of start at that point, right? Where it's like, here's this thing where it's like we're super interested in, but it's super intimidating.
Yes.
And everyone you talk to kind of feels like they're like, when you just get into it, they're Albert Einstein of watches. And it's just like, all right, well, maybe I don't really want to even engage this person because I don't want to sound like an idiot.
Yes.
So to sort of bridge that gap, I think is incredible. And it's something that we talk about all the time, even with like where we're going as a podcast and some of the questions that we get from like our audience. It's like, all right, how are we navigating these people? Because we talk about everything from like, you know, super duper like expensive to like swatches, which I think are really cool. And so we try to offer, you know, I guess a perspective where all of these things, regardless of price or prestige, can live on equal footing because ultimately I'll do the same thing.
Yes. And that's so cool that you say that because, you know, we get DMs, all of us, we get DMs, like you said, like, what should I buy? What should I do this? So like, oh, you shared a watch. How much is this? And you're like, oh, this watch is $40,000. And someone's like, are you like...
You don't even get a response back after that.
Exactly. Like, you may not get a response. So like, at least like the underlying response is like, dude, why the heck did you tell me that? But I think something that we do that's really, really well is like, there are alternatives. So like someone asked me about like the resonance piece and was like, I was like, this is 50 grand. Like, I don't know. I'm not going to count your money, but I'm going to say like, dude, this is an investment. And then, you know, I was like, hey, you know what? How about you look into like this look into this like smaller brand that actually, you know, you can kind of get your feet wet and then see if you want to dive into watches a little bit more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we need an entry point.
You need an entry point. You need to actually, I think, you know, when you get bit by the bug, you know, you have to see if like this is something that you really want to go with.
Yeah, you do.
It gets very expensive.
It does.
Very expensive. To
say the least. It's crazy.
Yeah, you should love it.
You should love it, 100%. If this is not something that you're gonna do for the rest of your life, it's okay to be one and done.
It's okay to be one and done.
It's okay to be one and done.
Yeah, you have to know when to turn the cards over and say it out.
Even though it never happens.
No, it never does.
Yeah, 100%.
So continuing on that theme, obviously your medium is social media. Where do you think social media stands right now with respect to the watch community, positive or negative? How has it impacted the community in your opinion?
Yeah. Well, I'm coming at it super fresh. So we're talking like 2019, I come up with the idea. And 2020, the summer, after I got let go from Sotheby's, by the way, the day that New York City shut down, they were like, peace. I was like, no. But that's because there was an acquisition. But I begged the watch department. I was like, I'll do anything. Please put me on your team. And they were like, it's okay.
Wow.
So
they're lost.
I know.
Yeah, now it is their loss. It is their loss.
You know, respect to them. But it really gave me the opportunity to kind of think about what I wanted to do. And I was like, you know, there's something there with that women in watches angle. So I start the Instagram account. So that was my foray into social media as it relates to the watch world. Because prior to that, I had no concept of it at all. I had never even heard of Hodinkee. So, you know, I'm coming at this super fresh. I'm just posting watches, seeing if things stick. Hodinkee finds me like 500 followers in. And I was like, oh, I'm not ready for the Hodinkee. Like I haven't even launched a website. I haven't done anything. And then they reposted something on their grid.
Cool.
And all of a sudden, overnight, I'm getting all these watch people, and I was
Yeah, that's when it
just like,
starts.
"Oh my
That's how it
God."
starts.
It's like,
Yeah, watch it. What the watch community is very, very loyal.
But they always also want something that's fresh, new, and exciting.
fresh,
Yes.
new, and exciting.
And that's where, I mean, that's kind of the culture of the watch community. That's why people can't stop buying watches,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
right? It's just that
Because
whole mentality.
It connects us all.
It really does.
does.
It really, really, truly does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your platform has a unique ability or approach in sort of bridging the gap between the watch community and pop culture. Is this done intentionally? Is this just kind of like a natural occurrence for you? Like,
Yeah.
where does Dimepiece fit in all that? Where does your personal philosophy and approach fit in all that?
Yeah. Well, I love pop culture. I'm, no shame. Like,
Yeah.
if I see, a celebrity wearing something, I'm totally influenced by it.
Sure.
Or at least just seeing like somebody like Zendaya wearing like a Cartier Panther. I'm like,
Yeah.
she's so cool.
She is.
She's wearing that watch. That watch must be cool. And I think that's the way a lot of people, whether we like it or not, think. Like,
Yep.
we are influenced.
Yeah.
That's true.
And I'm like, for that demographic, like that's it's so natural to me, and it's so cool to see all these watches. And also, a lot of watch accounts, it's just like the wrist shots.
Yes.
And I'm not getting a lot of context or inspiration from that if I'm not a hardcore watch person.
Got it.
Because I'm like, oh, it's just like some dude's wrist.
Yeah.
With like their like starched shirt.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really know like what type of person is wearing that. Where do they wear it? How do they style it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And by seeing like a full picture of somebody, you can kind of associate. You're like, oh, I know Bella Hadid's style. I know kind of what her vibe is.
Yeah.
And I see the watch she's wearing. Then I can kind of determine my own taste. Like whether
That's
I
so
like,
interesting.
do I relate to Bella or not? And if I do, I might like her watch and I might aspire to buy it one day.
So what's interesting is Hodinky actually did a post. It might have been today, or it was today or yesterday, and they posted a Ralph Lauren watch.
Okay.
And the sort of the subtext of the article was like, Ralph Lauren makes watches, they're incredibly underrated. And then I read the article, and then I went into, they had a link to like another article, which was an interview with Ben Clymer and Ralph Lauren.
Oh, cool.
And it's interesting because what you described is sort of his approach
Oh.
to watches, right? Where it's like he views it as an accessory. He's not completely concerned with what's under the hood, which makes sense given the generation that he comes from. But more of so like how it falls into the moment, right? What he's wearing, the mood that he's in, where he's going to. And it's another element to style and outfit his life for that day. And if you know anything about Ralph Lauren, you know it's always that day because it changes daily.
Always that,
right?
His mood
It changes multiple
Yeah.
times a day.
It can.
He can go
Absolutely.
like,
Seen that happen.
cocktail, black tie, James Bond, and then go like super like, equestrian to like cowboy to military
Yep.
to,
And
kind
that's
of like
that's totally like my vibe. I
Soho
get
hipster.
all of my information.
Checking all the boxes.
yeah, checks the boxes.
I get all of my information about watches either going to 80s and trying them on, the internet, or really these two guys.
Yeah.
Because I first come to it from an aesthetic perspective. Like, how do I feel wearing this? What does it look like? How do I wear it?
Yes.
And it is a very like Ralph Lauren approach because I'm trying to figure out how this piece fits into my life.
Yeah.
And one of the things we always talk about again is juxtaposition. And it's like I'm trying to figure out like how do I wear an OP, which is really a dress watch, and I'm like, well, I'm just gonna wear all denim because that's what feels natural
It
to
looks
me.
good.
Thank you.
It looks great. It looks
Yeah.
great.
But that is the lens that I come to it from, and then I get into the history, and then I get into the technology, and I feel like for especially for people that aren't seen traditionally as like being part of that community that for a lot of us is our entry point into that community. It is aesthetics.
Yeah.
Aesthetics.
Yeah. Also, kind of what you were saying, kind of merging pop culture and the watch world. I feel like I have weaseled my way into this community, and I'm kind of on the ground at places, and I'm like reporting to like-minded people. So it's like I was in the auction room when the Tiffany Nautilus.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, I was
What was
at
that like?
Phillips. I was like, am I really gonna get up at like 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning and go uptown? And I was so glad I did, because to kind of, you could see pictures of it,
Sure.
and it's exciting, and
Yep.
you're just like, what in the world? But to be in the room and feel the energy and kind of just understand how crazy this world is.
It was insane.
It was insane. And I was literally like red in the face every time there was a new bid. Because
Sure.
it was just like 4 million and then it's like 5 million from New York, New York. And I was like, oh my God. I was like screaming.
Yes.
And then to be able to kind of report back to the Dimepiece community, like, this is happening right now. Like, this is history. This is whatever opinion you have on the watch, like, it's still just such a crazy moment in time. And there's so much hype.
It was a lot of hype, and it was really wild. And we had talked about this too, where it was like, and each of us, we have our own opinions about it. But the consensus among us was, because we were tuned in on Instagram.
Yes.
They did it was on IG Live. And it was the first time
Crazy.
I got to like peek into a live auction. Usually we go to the website and we just see the numbers go up. And I was actually in the back of an Uber. I was on my way to work, and I'm like glued in with my headphones, and I'm like, yo, this is crazy. I'm like texting people at the same time.
Yes.
It was a moment.
It was a moment.
It was wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you kind of have that insight, because we all, some of us had the luxury to actually be in that arena. And then there are some people that can speculate, and for some of us being able to actually speak to it, like, well, this is the truth. I was there.
Yeah.
I seen it. Like, this is how it went down. It's so much speculation and conspiracies in the watch community. And I think it's also something, I think when you have a product like a timepiece, it does that. Even the same as, my background in fashion. I remember when I did work for a specific brand, you have somebody come and be like, yo, man, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, how does this boutique have it? Like, yo, they offloading the boxes off the truck? Like, what's going on? I'm like, dude, there's no, like, conspiracy.
Yeah.
Like, no, this man just got it before the other, and it sold out. That's that.
Yeah.
You
It's
know
so
what I mean?
simple.
It's so funny that, we have like the inside and the truth, and then the community goes ahead and dictates and shares these forums and spreads this information.
Well, that's also kind of like the fun about it too.
That is the fun about it.
I'm not gonna lie, I enjoy that a little
Yes.
bit. And then to see where all of that wound up, and now you got this guy Zach.
Yes.
Oh my God. He was making a scene in the room.
I mean, or was he?
Yeah, he pulled up super late.
Wow.
And he was at the back of the room, just standing there, being like the only in-person bidder, really.
Wow.
It was just like, the whole room was looking at him.
Like, who is this guy?
Hundreds of people. Who's this man in the camel coat?
Wow.
He looks about 25.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on here? I was like, is he like a plant? Like, more conspiracy.
That's so funny.
And then he winds up with the watch.
I know,
Anyway,
it's so crazy.
But
it's wild.
But it's crazy. Like, he showed up physically. This is my watch.
Yeah.
I'm coming for it.
Yeah.
Power
That deserves a
manifestation.
growl after.
Yeah.
Yeah, that deserves
That
a growl.
deserves a
You got to. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that is a thing I growl on the show.
Okay.
Please don't worry, I won't bite you.
Smokey the Bear.
Right?
That was good. Continuing on your influence, obviously, in following the Dimepiece page and what you do, we do realize how important it is for you to actively amplify the voices of women. How are you actively working to grow that community outside of just what you do on social media?
Well, first of all, I will say I'm obviously not the first woman in the watch
Sure.
industry, because it's like what I discovered after all these watch people started following me was how many women there were in it. And I didn't realize. So you got like the Kelly Yox, and meeting her was such an honor, because I was like, oh my God, she knows everybody. She worked at Peg, you know, like
She's really awesome.
she knows her stuff like dialed. And it was so special for me to kind of connect with these women who have been here and they can speak to watches with true authority. And that was so exciting, because I didn't really even know that community kind of existed as a total outsider. And to meet those women, and to also meet a new generation of women and inspire them to get into it, no matter if they're working in the industry or, you know, if they just got into it because they saw a picture of Rihanna.
Yeah, she was wearing the Midas,
Yes, oh my God.
Yes.
which is a beautiful watch.
Yes.
Hodinky called me up and they were like, can you write an article on this today? And I was like, good thing I don't have anything else to do. No, but yeah, it's so cool. Just like the amount of women who either were in it or could be interested in it, but haven't really been spoken to the right way. Because, you know, like somebody like me, I didn't care about watches at all, which is so crazy to think about, because it's like, I'm 31, you know, I'm making a little extra money. I'm ready to kind of level up. And why had I never thought about a watch before? Like how did the watch brands fuck up so much? Like they
That's a good point.
The marketing. I'm like, where? Because I feel like I've been brainwashed by Gucci ever since I was a young kid. Like, you want Gucci. That's what you want to spend your money on. If you earn it, you're going to buy a Gucci bag.
Yes.
I think that's an excellent point, because it often does feel like they're missing communities that either are interested or are actively involved in the watch community. And it's just like, regardless how you feel, you guys are missing the money.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna cash in.
Yes.
You're not even there.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's crazy.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's women, it's people of color, it's
Yeah.
people of different like gender identities, just like everybody but straight white men.
You know who does it really well? I feel like Swatch. I feel like, and I think that's probably why we talk about them so often.
We
Their marketing is really incredible.
It's to everyone.
It really is.
You know, and of all ages, genders, and like you said, identities.
Yeah.
And you know, I think the great thing to what you were saying is the fact that you actually do voice all of these people. You kind of like embody it all. You know, obviously, you know, you can't be like multiracial, multicolor. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can only be you. You can only be one person.
Yeah.
Sure.
But, you know, one thing that I think that you have been able to do really well is at least shine a light on it, you know, and say, hey, you know what? You guys should give this a look.
Yeah.
For however you feel about it.
Sure.
You know, whatever you think about it, you know, if you're a purist or if you're someone that's all the way on the disorder. And I think that's what's inspired me to do my double wrist check.
Hey.
You know, because you do come from a place of disorder. You know, you come from a place where
The tourist versus the purist, right?
the tourist versus the purist.
Sure.
And you know, you really felt left out, but you found your way in.
Yeah.
And now look how much success has brought you.
Yeah. Like I said, I feel like I like weaseled my way into
Yes.
Phillips.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's what you got to do. You got to weasel on.
Absolutely. I mean, and Kelly spoke about it too. You know, with her being a woman and being on, you know, being on this platform, you know, we asked her too, is like, you know, how you maintain yourself with this much responsibility?
Right.
You know, because like for you, like one article, one statement, one interview, you know, could really change your career
Right.
for the better or the worse.
Right.
Sure.
And you know, at least for us here, you know, we try our best to convey that message and keep it in a positive light, to where it's like, no, this is inviting.
Yeah.
We want
Absolutely.
you all.
No,
We want you all to be a part of it.
I love your podcast because
thank you.
I was listening
you.
today.
Okay.
I was doing my homework.
Good.
And I'm totally into it. I was like, what about this makes it so much more enjoyable than your typical? And you guys were talking about JLC.
Yes.
And one of you was like, well, let's back it up a bit. what is JLC? And somebody nailed the French.
You wanna give us a little demonstration, Mr.
Yeah.
Smith?
Gégé le coup.
I was
Emerald Lagasse and the
Yeah.
on the stove.
like, Salt Bay.
Right?
I was like, how nice of them to back it up, pause,
Yeah.
consider somebody who doesn't know what JLC is,
Mm-hmm.
and to give context and history. And I was like, this is so enriching to me. Like, I'm learning something right now.
Oh,
And
it's
it's not
awesome.
just like, you should know about this, and if you don't, do your own research.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
it's considerate. And that's so important in the watch world.
I think so, and that I appreciate that statement. I think we all do, because this whole thing started with just a love and appreciation for watches, and I think if you are tuned in, what you're seeing is something that we would do when the cameras were off anyway.
Yes.
And I think, for me at least, that's what makes it special. I actually go back and I watch our own episodes.
Oh.
I don't know if that's very Kanye of me. Maybe I don't know.
We support that. That should be.
But I do, and I think it makes us better.
Yes.
But also, like, what's great is I enjoy it. I enjoy the conversations that we're actually having, and I go back and I revisit, and I'm like, oh, I might catch things that I missed in the
Yeah.
actual conversation. So
Yeah.
it's really good. Rashawn, used the phrase "shining a light on something." Let's shine the light on this. You wrote an article recently for Harpers Bazaar that kind of blew up.
I was very nervous. I was like, oh my God.
Just put that out
I
there.
know. Well,
What inspired you to write this article?
I-
Where did this come from?
I feel like
And I guess let's give it
Yeah.
context,
Yeah.
right? So you wrote an article in Harper's Bazaar,
Mm-hmm.
and if I could summarize, it was talking about how the act of bust downing a watch or customizing your watch,
Mm-hmm.
outfitting it with stones, diamonds, jewels, is met with some vitriol, and that underneath there is a subtext of racism. So what inspired you to write this article?
yeah. Well, just for added context, I'm the monthly watch columnist at Harper's Bazaar.
Okay.
And the pieces that I had written previous were very informational, very kind of neutral, although I did defend small watches.
Yeah, good.
But that still felt really neutral. And I enjoyed writing those articles. But I was also like, I feel like there's so many stories that could be told
Yeah.
that aren't really getting told. And in my experience with Dimepiece posting, everyone from, old 50s photos of Paul Newman to Cardi B with her iced out Nautilus. It's like I am receiving all of the comments.
Wow.
Like I see the likes, I
Yep.
see the numbers, I see the comments, the opinions. Like I can't escape that.
Yeah.
And I just noticed that whenever I would post like a bust down watch, people were really mad. They would hit me with puke emojis. She just ruined that watch.
Yeah.
It was in that process that I got to learn. I was like, oh, yes. Okay. So aftermarket, anything will, decrease the watch's value.
Sure.
And it's something that you have to be careful with because people get ripped off. And I was also listening. I really appreciated how you called out how John Mayer got ripped off.
Yeah, that was
Yes.
bad.
There you go.
Yes, I didn't know that because, you hear a lot about this rapper got ripped off
Sure.
at this jeweler. But the way that the stories were being told and the opinions were expressed, it just felt like,
Felt like
made
one-sided.
my stomach kind of
Yeah.
turn. And I was like, I understand the distaste. I don't like factory set. I think I could never wear it. But I also, in doing research about it, I was like, I spoke to somebody named Zenobia Morrow. She's a GS certified gemologist. She's a jewelry designer. And
Yeah.
she was like, this really comes from like a deeper cultural place of like adornment, but also, take like rappers in the bling era
Yep.
or like, they're chopping and screwing beats
Yeah.
and they're experimenting. They're putting their own personal touch on things. They're sampling. So it's kind of consistent that you know, people might do this with a watch.
Sure.
And I was like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. But I don't know. I was just like, I can't help but see the racism here, especially, you know, like Cardi B, people, they're just so comfortable expressing their
I think
distaste.
that's the key,
Yes.
right? Is the comfortability in
Yes.
expressing the distaste
Yes.
without like properly contextualizing that like people have been bust downing watches for years
Absolutely.
of every ethnic background,
Yeah.
every you know, gender. Like that's nothing new. In the same way that like people customize their car, right?
Yeah.
You buy a watch, you can customize
Yeah.
it. I mean, even when you think back to how many like Rolexes do you see on the secondary market that are like on websites like First Dibs,
Yes.
where it's got a custom dial,
Yeah, some weird
right?
color.
Like in the 70s in particular, that was like kind of
Yeah.
it was a thing that people were doing. Like if Rolex wasn't making it, it was like, well,
the stone.
I'll go do it myself.
Exactly.
There's been a lot of people too, like a lot of artists or like more creative people in that space who have collaborated with stores like Bloomingdale's and Saks to sell
Oh, yeah.
custom
Yeah.
Rolexes,
Yeah.
and people buy them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And to be fair, the only people who I've seen buy them are white people.
Yeah.
So why is that okay?
Yes.
But not a rapper, and I'm using rappers as a specific example. Why is it not okay for them to have a bust down watch?
Yeah.
Especially when it's a part of the culture. You know, you're a rapper and you're making money off music. You want to show off. You want
Yeah.
to be opulent. So you
Yeah.
find a watch you like. You put stones in it.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Because you think it's cool, and then at that point, it's like it's your money. You can tell what to do with it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely not for me, but I'm
Yeah.
the type of guy, I don't really wear stones. I don't like
Yeah.
diamonds.
Yeah.
Ben
I
loves
love
diamonds.
He loves diamonds.
He loves
I love
diamonds.
He loves diamonds.
And you know something too, I think something that we kind of scratched the surface when we were talking about, Kelly, just as far as like the inclusiveness of the watch industry. You know, we know that, you know, this industry is dominated by a certain demographic, and that, you know, others have little voices, whether it is people of color, women, of any race or whatever, or any kind of identity. You know, it is overpowered by another group. But I think the idea of bust down watches, or at least like aftermarket, and why
Yeah.
we see the secondary market excelling the way that it is because we've shunned so many people out.
Oh,
If-
absolutely.
you know, like I said, like I used the idea of like walking into Torno. You know, I didn't feel comfortable enough to walk in there, and I
Yeah.
wanted to apply for a job. I wanted to, you know, sell the products. The same as, you know, someone on the other flip side wanting to come in and actually buy a watch,
Sure.
being judged and being like, oh, you can't afford that.
Yeah.
Or maybe if it wasn't that you can't afford that, oh, I'm gonna make you jump through hoops until you get it.
Yeah.
And we're finding that now, and you know, for the people that actually just solely want the watch, it's so hard for them to acquire it,
Yeah.
and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
being someone that has to have those conversations, or you know, someone that has known a friend, or so on and so forth, to be able to say, you know, man, I've worked so hard for this watch and I can't get it. So I, even to your point, P, I understand why you're like, you know, I love my watch so much, but I can't wear it because I'm judged, or I'm looked at by my peers, or, you know, my subordinates, or whatever, so on and so forth, to be like, what'd you do to get that?
That's always the question when you see somebody wearing a new Rolex or a steel Rolex.
Like,
It's like, how?
How did you
Yeah,
get that?
how?
Like, why are you here right now?
And here I am.
Big man.
Oh, no.
Yes, of course.
You know, it's funny. My wife is like, man, show that thing around. What you doing? I'm like, She's like, if it were me.
She be shining.
Oh,
Has
yeah.
she tried it on?
She be
She has.
shining.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
And so I really enjoyed the article, and it made me. There was a comment. I think her name is Danielle Prescott, made that I thought was an excellent another perspective too, because when she talked about, you know, people of color being completely left out of the conversation, and then it gets assumed that like, no, all black people or people of color like bust down watches.
Yeah.
And she's like, I went for like a vintage kind of regular Rolex
Uh-huh.
Yes.
because that's what I like.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. And you have me sitting down with someone who's a traditionalist. I don't wear stones in any way. It's not for me.
Yeah.
I respect. It's for
Please.
you, and you can pull it off.
Yeah.
But I am a traditionalist. I like things that are the way that they're supposed to be. Whether that says something good or bad about me, whatever. But then it also made me think about the other side too, where in the article you're talking about Cardi B, and her actually not having access to the information and knowing that when you do bust down a watch, that it does not appreciate.
Right.
Yes.
And so there's the flip side too,
Yeah.
that I think doesn't get talked about much, where you have jewelers that are either, selling these pieces at crazy inflated prices,
Right.
or selling them fake watches, which we've seen
Lil
happen.
Baby.
I mean, that happened to Lil Baby recently, and the watch that he purchased was not bust down.
Yes.
He tried to purchase the 40th anniversary
Platinum Nautilus.
Nautilus,
Oh, no.
and it turned out that it was fake.
Oh
Yes.
no.
Yes.
You hate to hear it.
You hate to hear it.
It's terrible. And, what he did say in his post is, and he added Protect Philippe, and he said, hey, you guys need to let us in.
Yeah.
And, kind of calling back to what I was saying is like, if you are an original jeweler for any of these boutiques, you are going to get those same questions. You're going to get can I have this? Can I have that? And what it takes to have those things.
Yeah.
Totally. But you also have to have the patience to understand that, somebody has reached this milestone in their life and all they want is that.
Sure.
And it's so sad that, it takes a situation like that, for someone to go ahead and say, well, I've been left out.
Yeah.
Listen, I've reached a certain milestone in my life.
It's also just kind of like racism, outside of it being racism, confuses me. In that, like, obviously it should confuse me. It doesn't make any sense. But like, even if like you're someone who cares about money,
Yes.
right? And like, you would think that you would look at someone like a Lil Baby and say, this guy just spent $400,000 on a watch,
Yes.
right? It would behoove me to do good business with him.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Because if he can spend $400,000 on one piece, he's going to keep coming back and buying watches with me if I do good business with him.
Yes.
And I think for me, that's all I'm asking for.
Yes.
Give me good business. Give me good information. Don't leave me out of the conversation.
Yes.
Like, we're in the conversation. If you're not going to let us in, we're going to push ourselves in. But also, like, do good business.
Yes.
It works out for everybody.
Yes.
And you realize that these ideas, these preconceived notions that people have are stupid.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for anybody.
Yeah.
No.
No.
And it makes the world more boring when you're not like representing and listening to other people. Because you just see the
Exactly.
same boring ass wrist shot.
Yes.
I'm just
There you go. Yes.
like, I want to see something different. It's why Dimepiece caught on. It's why people are probably listening to your podcast.
Absolutely.
It's exciting.
Absolutely. And I think something too that, to be completely transparent is like, it's okay to bust down your watch.
Yeah.
It's your watch.
It's
your,
yours.
you
You
own
do
it.
anything you own
You
Yes.
paid for it. It's yours.
Yes.
And even
And no one has to like it.
Yeah.
So even still to go back to, Lil Baby. So Lil Baby has said in like a latest feature, he said, my mentor is Michael Rubin. And I don't know what
Oh, the guy who owns the Sixers.
who owns the Sixers.
Sure.
I don't know what their conversations are, but I could see Michael Rubin, because he is a watch collector and he has helped other rap artists in other avenues outside of like watches, but he is prominent in the watch community and he shares to his guys. He says, don't bust that down because you're going to depreciate it. But the thing is this though, Michael Rubin is in the space of that watch hierarchy. So he kind of makes that dictation amongst his community to go ahead and say, if you bust down a watch, you depreciate it. But what happens if the roles were reversed and, someone like a Virgil who, went ahead and customized his Patek Philippe? Why is it that his Patek Philippe can actually skyrocket through the roof? Obviously, he had an untimely demise and that's very unfortunate. And, his name and what he's done in just the whole pop culture and influence of just like the globe speaks to that.
Sure.
But there's still some part of it is like, that was done with taste.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, there is, like, you can't deny it. As much as you want to say it's unpure, it's like, that's hot.
Well, no one's complaining.
hot.
No one's complaining about Artisans of Geneva doing it.
That's what
Exactly.
thank you for
And
saying
like
that.
literally, it started off with Rolexes and they moved on to 5711.
Yeah.
Thank
Yes.
you
Like-
so much for saying that.
Yes.
No one's complaining about that. I've had people literally ask me to help them source a watch to send to Artisans of Geneva to be customized.
Absolutely.
No one is asking me to help them find a watch to get buzzed down. So why? Like, what's the difference there?
It's the same thing.
Exactly.
It is
Yeah.
And
exactly
if you
the same
pay
thing.
for it, it belongs to you, and you can do what you want with it. And I think ultimately too, I think it's also, we talked about this when we shot with Kelly, where like her seeing grown men on the floor crying in the authorized
yes.
dealer about the watches. I think part of it is like a FOMO thing too,
Yeah,
right?
it's fear of missing
Where
out.
it's like, well, why does he have the watch and I don't? And then look what he did with the watch.
Yes.
And they're just mad.
Yes.
They're
It's the
mad.
salty guys. We go back to it. We
It's the
name-
salty guys.
It's the salty guys. Everything that's going on right now, if there's any kind of negative, content or someone going ahead and sharing something
It's because
outside,
they don't have it.
it's
Yeah.
because
But
they don't
listen,
have it.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. If you ever seen a bust down Rolex in person,
Yes.
it's kind of nice.
It is kind of nice. You know what I'm saying?
It's kind of nice.
But I think also
It's not
too,
for me.
Yeah.
But when you see it glitter like that,
You like, oh,
like, oh, I'm
I
lost.
might do a bust
kinda
down
nice.
that week. You know what I mean?
It's kinda
kinda hot.
nice.
It is kind of hot.
Yeah, when it's done right, it's done right.
It's kinda nice.
Exactly. And I think also too is like where these guys are getting their bust downs right now. You know, it's a small community of guys that are acquiring them, but I don't think there's anyone in that space that's very prestige. So there isn't really someone with the reputation like a master gem setter, someone that has gone off, because if you have a gem setter that came from, let's say, Patek Philippe or Rolex, because we know the condescending, the idea of Rolex, like you can literally take a watch that, like a Pro Master, for example, encrusted in diamonds.
Sure.
You can literally smash your wrist like this and not a single stone will come out.
There's so many of those guys around, though, especially in New York City.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them. And I think
They
that
just work for small jewelers.
They work for small jewelers, but they need to kind of market themselves, even because it's almost like those kind of guys, like that's a craft.
I feel like Greg Una is trying to
Yeah.
position himself that
He's
way.
trying-
He used to go by Mr. Flawless.
Yes.
Oh.
But you don't remember, he used to go by Mr. Flawless. You don't remember that?
No.
Yes.
he used to be-
Yeah.
he was Mr. Flawless.
Ooh.
I mean, but Jacob was the first to do it too.
Yeah, Jacob
Yeah,
was.
Jacob was a jeweler,
Jacob
and now
was.
he's making high horology watches.
Oh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jacob
Yeah.
was that. I mean, I was going to
Sure.
Yo, Jacob is a G. That's just what we're
I mean,
saying.
he's highly respected. He's really good. He even made art pieces. I don't know if there was a collection he did with Pharrell
Yes.
in the mid 2000s, where they did these diamond encrusted artifacts. One was like a bag of Doritos. One
Oh,
was a
cool.
Johnson & Johnson baby lotion bottle.
Yes.
Pop art.
Yeah,
Yes,
they
pop
did a
art.
pop art
Yeah.
collection, him and Pharrell, and it sold for like $5 million.
Yeah. Shout out to Jacob, man. He's a legend.
So he is ahead of his time and did incredible work. Would you ever wear a custom watch?
I mean, I feel like I'm so early in my collecting journey. Not right now.
We're starting at the ground floor.
Yeah,
Sure.
I definitely, I'm like Danielle. I got this, regular date dress of which there.
It's so classy, though.
Yeah, I feel
Yes.
comfortable with it. It goes with my.
You can wear it with
look.
everything.
But who knows? I might be balling out one day, like living in Beverly Hills, and I might.
You might
see
want to bust
something-
down swatch.
I mean, y'all know I seen the bust down too there in
He seen the
Florida.
bust down too, though, which
That
is
was
crazy.
Crazy.
Oh my god.
A Black Bay 41 bust
Wow.
down. Diamonds
It's a way to
everywhere.
express yourself.
Yeah.
That's just it. And
That's a lot of
And you
expression.
said that in your article too. This is a way how you express yourself.
Yeah.
Chopped and screwed.
To bust down a Tudor, you got to really love Tudor.
You gotta
Yes,
really love Tudor.
oh my
Well, I told you, Polo G had bust down a Polo watch.
I'm still looking for that picture.
Yeah.
I haven't
No,
seen
I
it.
seen that.
Listen,
You
we're
gotta
gonna find
send
it.
to
We're
us.
gonna find it.
Okay,
We
you
need
gotta
to
send it
see
to
it.
us.
Yeah. Legitimately, like I seen it.
So
It's nuts.
it's got to be.
Well, is it a polo horse watch?
It's the Polo Horse
Oh,
watch.
man.
Exactly. That's
Yeah,
the one
I
from
can't wait to see it.
From the
last
2020
year.
collection.
Sure.
Yeah, 2020, 2021 collection. Yeah.
In terms of pop culture and icons and figures, is there anyone you see currently that is an important voice for underrepresented voices in the watch community?
Yeah. Tyler, the Creator.
I agree with that.
He is. Oh my
I
God.
agree with that
Yes.
so much.
Good.
I really do. And I love, there was a Hot 97 interview he did.
Uh-huh.
Did you see this?
No.
And he talked about how much he hated Rolex.
Oh.
Yeah.
He was like, I hate him.
Oh my God.
And he walks
Rolex
around
and that voice.
with the car. And he
pretty good.
walks around with a Cartier Crash.
Yes.
And I'm just like, man, you are the dude.
He's the dude.
He really is.
It's everything because it's like the way he styles it, him considering smaller pieces like Cartier's from the 1940s on and he makes it his own. He'll put it on like a lime green like
Sure.
lizard strap and it's
Bend
just
it out.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, is that your
That's what he
thing?
does. He picks out straps.
Oh,
He picks out all our watch straps.
Oh, okay.
Legitimately.
Yeah.
Good to have somebody like that in the crew.
Yes.
Yes.
But I feel like he's just really emerged as a different kind of collector with amazing taste, and he's really creative, and you know he's creative in everything he does. But like to think that he would buy some like 1940s Cartier, and it gets people being like, "What is that? Like, what is he wearing?"
Exactly.
He
loves stuff.
He loves
He
stuff.
is a
collects
collector.
stuff.
He's a collector.
He collects stuff.
Much like you.
Exactly. I'm exactly the same way. He collects luggage. He collects cars.
Yeah. And he's coming at it from the perspective of aesthetics.
Absolutely.
He's an art guy
Absolutely.
at heart, I think. And it tells in everything he does, even his house.
Yes.
You know, if you ever seen that, like that, maybe it was MTV Cribs or something like MTV Cribs, but his house is like a weird little playland.
Yeah.
It's wild, but it's super cool.
Yeah.
He makes luxury so fun.
He really does.
Yeah.
I think that's an excellent way to put it because it all feels very luxurious.
Yes.
He, especially on like the wave that he's on now, I feel like you mentioned, like the Louis V luggage and like even like the work he's putting out right now, it like differs so much from what he was putting out when he was first getting his stuff.
Yeah.
Even though you always knew that he would like love stuff and he loved like the aesthetic and he was always a very clear vision. But now it's like his videos now are like him like at a really nice hotel and
Yeah.
he's in the south of France and but he's doing it in a way that feels really fresh and really creative and
Yeah.
colorful and exciting versus like your stuffy usual. I don't know.
Exactly.
He's
Yeah.
just really got a different take on it.
He's
His
dialed
Gucci
in.
campaign did it too.
Yeah.
Have you seen his last
No.
Gucci campaign?
Well, the Louis Vuitton. Was it Louis Vuitton?
No, he did a Gucci campaign.
He's all over the
Yeah,
place.
seriously.
Him and
Okay,
A$AP
wow,
Rocky.
He's like, I do Gucci and Louis. What do you want?
Yeah, he's all over the
Gucci,
place.
Louis,
Like,
Cartier.
he's tapping everybody's
He
pockets.
really is.
Yes,
He's tapping
yes.
everybody's
Good for
pockets. He's definitely someone that has like an acquired taste, but it's tasteful.
I love what he does. I think he has an incredible eye and an incredible approach to design. I think his music is absolutely fantastic. We saw that with the last album. Some of the best production I've heard in hip hop in probably the last 10 years.
100%.
I love him.
He is great. So we're nearing the end. I've only got one question left for you, if the guys don't have any further questions. But with where you are now, and I know you still view yourself as being the beginning of this. What is present day? What is your dream watch? What is the watch that you have your heart set on right now?
I mean, that's a really hard question.
So many.
There are so many, and this is a really basic answer, but I want a Royal Oak real bad.
There's no shame in that.
And I want a really tiny one.
Sure.
Like a 25 millimeter one.
Okay.
And yeah, because I mean, just coming at it from like the Sotheby's angle, we did a piece on the Royal Oak and learning about Gerald Genta and kind of what a groundbreaking design it was at the time, like a steel sports watch. And why did it cost so much? I just find it to be such an icon, and I never see the small guys. I'm selling one on the Dimepiece shop right now, but I don't think people, I don't know. I want to
see
buy it.
I feel you on that. I didn't see myself as an AP guy until recently, and what changed was I was at an authorized dealer and they had a vintage Royal Oak. It was like a 2-tone bracelet, white dial, and it was quartz. But it was super thin, and it was much smaller than I was used to seeing them. I think it was 70s, 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
And I saw that, and I was like, I think I like Royal Oaks.
Yeah.
Like, I like them like that.
Yeah.
That small, like
Yeah,
35.
really, just
Yeah,
because
it's like-
you don't see it like that.
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
when you do, it's kind of like a shocking moment. It's like, man, that thing is nice.
And it's
Yeah.
also one of those things like once it like pops out of the sleeve,
Uh-huh.
it's like, oh, so that's what we doing here.
Yeah.
And you like,
Yeah, that's what we do.
that's what we doing.
And I wouldn't mind quartz. I think
Yes.
the quartz one is
Yeah.
it's fire.
100%.
Thin.
Yeah, it's super.
all
It's
aesthetics.
nice.
That's
Yeah.
where it comes
Beautiful.
from.
Yes. And I mean, the bracelet, like on yours, this is a really good one. You see it shining. Like, it's just so nice.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
really want.
You gotta get
We'll
your
get you a
Casio,
G
girl.
Shock,
I
and
know.
he'll hook you up with his dude,
I
and we
know.
can make that happen.
Yeah.
That would be so awesome if
Yeah.
I had one of those.
Listen, signed by Dimepiece.
Yeah.
There we go.
Engrave it.
Collab idea.
Yeah, right?
That'd be dope.
So thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
This was fun.
Thanks for
Yes.
having me.
Yes,
I'm glad
yes.
we had you. We talked about some real things, and it was also a lot of fun. I think what you're doing is incredible. I love the article. I talked to these guys about it at length, and there were some other people in the watch community that follow you that I spoke to too, and they were really digging it.
Cool.
Keep doing what you're doing, and hopefully we see everyone at the top.
Yes.
That's the goal.
Yes.
Right.
See you guys at the top. I gotta get a sky dweller.
There we go. I think that should be the name of the episode. I gotta get Sky
I gotta
Dweller.
get a sky dweller.
That might be it.
Altitude is real high.
Yeah,
over there.
right?
I like
Yeah.
that.
The altitude.
So that
Hard to
was
breathe.
episode 14.
Yes.
We're moving along, fellas.
This is a real thing.
This is a real thing. It's getting real each moment, and I really enjoyed this interview. So thank you again.
Yes.
such a
Thanks
pleasure.
for having me.
For
Such
all
a pleasure.
for all of you watching, you can find us on Instagram at RiskCheckPod. We're on YouTube, releasing an episode every Wednesday, once a week. We're also on Spotify Video, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. And we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Deuces.